Hello, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, did Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns really block an NXT call-up?
Candice Michelle claims she was falsely promoted for this week's Raw.
Got a backstage update on Snoop Dogg's supposed heat in WWE.
And which WWE legend doesn't like the Royal Rumble? I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
And we're going to kick things off by talking about how Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns are a couple of bastard backstage politicians and basically the new Hulk Hogan. Not really, but we've got a kind of cancelled NXT call-up to talk about here. The person in question is Damian Priest. We've got a report here from Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio. This kind of follows on from yesterday's story when we were talking about how somebody was supposed to be called up as part of the Roman Reigns-Kevin Owens storyline on last week's SmackDown, but it was cancelled. Fightful then issued a report stating that, oh, by the way, Damian Priest, they were talking about calling him up, although it might not have been necessarily for that role. Now Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Radio, he has come through, put the whole lot together and provided some new details as well. So yes, Damian Priest was supposed to be the dude that was going to be called up as part of that angle, the main event angle on last week's episode of SmackDown. The role he was going to play, and this is really weird, was Kevin Owens' best friend. Oh, okay. He was going to be Kevin Owens' best friend. We were going to get a 2-on-2 match, him and Big Kev versus Jey Uso and Roman Reigns on the show, and then presumably some kind of angle from that. It was all written up. It was ready to go. Damian Priest was ready. He was in the building for the call-up, but Kevin Owens said, hold on. This doesn't make any goddamn sense. I mean, me and Damian have nothing in common that would tie us together. No one's going to believe this. This is mental. And Roman Reigns, well, he agreed because it's silly. And the thing was cancelled. It was put on ice. Damian Priest still believed to be coming to WWE's main roster, although now it is thought that he will be heading to Raw rather than SmackDown. Expected sometime before the end of the month. We don't have an exact date or anything on that. But that's such a weird idea, isn't it? Like, I'm all for Damian Priest coming to the main roster. I think the guy's fantastic. I think he's got every tool you want from somebody to make an immediate impact on the main roster. He's charismatic, he's a great wrestler, he's got a good look, everything else. But why would you just go randomly, hey, this guy's Kevin Owens' best friend, when you know, in wrestling at least, Kevin Owens' best friend has also been his best enemy at times, Sami Zayn. It's a really weird situation. Wrestling is obviously a work, right? Everything's a lie. Most of it is made up. It's based on conning your audience into buying into storylines, basically. But things like this are just so clearly and transparently false that they'd be impossible to buy in. So I think this is daft. I'm kind of glad it got cancelled. I am also glad that we'll apparently be seeing Damian on the main roster soon, because getting beat by Karrion Kross is a very appropriate way to go out, and I think he deserves it.
Who'd have thought it, the surprise return of Logic to WWE in 2021? Obviously, vicariously through the wrestlers, because the booking team haven't got a sodding clue what they're doing. But yeah, a lot to unpack here. Like you say, when you said we're going to bring someone in who's Kevin Owens' best friend, a little bit awkward when you've got Kevin Owens' best friend on SmackDown already, and just, yeah, he's kind of busy being an arsehole. A brilliant arsehole, Sami Zayn, but an arsehole nonetheless. And also weird that, considering the amount of time Kevin Owens has had in this company, he still has to go through the conduit of Roman Reigns to go, are you sure this makes sense? Like, I'm sure Roman Reigns agreed with him, but ridiculous that he has to use the sway of Roman when it's Kevin Owens at the end of the day. And like you say, it wouldn't have made any sense, would it? I'd have been excited to have Damian Priest on the main roster, but as with many of the big swerves that WWE often pulls, a few days later you'd go, well, wait, actually that makes no sense whatsoever. And you hear all this, like you say, about them saying we want to bring Damian Priest to the main roster. Like you, I completely agree. He got beaten by Karrion Kross on New Year's Evil. That should be it for him on NXT, in my opinion. He's done a lot, been NXT North American champion, and he seems like a main roster wrestler without besmirching him too much. He seems like someone who'd be perfect on the main roster in NXT, a bit like Elias or King Corbin used to be. And I'm not saying that he's going to be as iffy as them on the main roster, but you get where I'm coming from. And also, why are we sitting here and saying, oh yeah, he's probably going to be called up within the month? Was kind of a big thing at the end of this month that he'd be perfect for, and he's got imagine that entrance just out of the blue. Also, I've got my sources just in my ear there, Andy. Sorry, I've actually found the promo that Kevin Owens was going to cut surrounding the surprise appearance of Damian Priest. Kevin Owens was going to say, Roman, I don't see what's going on here. Like, you just keep kicking the crap out of me week after week on pay-per-views, on SmackDown, etc. I just feel like you've got it in for me. Order of infamy, and then he's going to come out and bollocks and all that sort of thing. But yeah, obviously we want to see him on the main roster, but this would have been dumb. Speaking of dumb things, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. We mentioned earlier on in this week about Carlito and Candice Michelle being advertised the show, they're not being on it. Carlito seems to suggest that they just sort of went, see you on Raw, yeah? And never checked whether it was all right for him to be able to get there, and we weren't sure whether it was like travel logistics or whatever. Candice Michelle has now come out, speaking to Fightful Select, saying that she was just falsely promoted. And then she spoke to Wrestling Inc. and gave more information about this, saying it was falsely promoted. I was never asked to be there. I would have loved to be there. I love WWE. Anytime they call me, super honoured to go there and be called a legend. As we know, for whatever rhyme or reason, I just wasn't meant for that show. And she continued that if she had been there, she would have just been on the stage doing nothing with 30 other people who are much more famous than I am. Don't put yourself down like that, Candice. I used to love her back in the day, probably for obvious reasons. But still, so they asked Carlito, they just leave a message on his answer machine going, all right, Carlito, mate, yeah, you good for Monday? Cool, sweet, see you then. And then they just forget to ask Candice Michelle, Andy.
Despite putting her in the advertisements. What the hell? Like, who planned this thing? Who was the marketing team behind this? Who decided, yeah, we'll just put this random person on here? It beggars belief. It speaks to the kind of like the lack of general disorganization throughout the whole promotion. I don't know. I don't really have much more to add to this. You're running a sloppy shop. Fix it up.
I can just imagine the conversation backstage on Monday afternoon. What time's Candice getting here? I thought you spoke to Candice. What?
Candice LeRae shows up or something. It's like, what a shambles, man. What a shambles. Speaking of shambles, that's harsh. I like Snoop. Snoop Dogg, does he have backstage heat in WWE? The answer is no. That's the story. Move on. Not really. This is an update from Fightful Select. If you remember, when Snoop was announced for AEW Dynamite back in December, when the news was made that he was coming, he's going to be on the show, there was all this talk of WWE like being upset with him, and they removed the Undertaker merch that he'd done from the shop, from the online store, which we later found out was always supposed to happen. It was only supposed to be on sale until early December, so that was no great thing. But the Fightful Select report here states that rumors of backstage heat for Snoop Dogg in WWE have been greatly exaggerated. A lot of people within the promotion figured that, when Cody and Snoop were going to be judges together on the Go Big show, Snoop, who's a big wrestling fan, would probably go into AEW and do something with Cody anyway, which he did. He was on this week's show, did the 5-star dog splash as we spoke about. Something else. But yeah, it's good to know there's no residual heat in WWE. His cousin, Sasha Banks, is obviously there. She was tweeting about his appearance in AEW the other day. It was good fun.
Great tweet. I saw her for the Photoshop of WrestleMania, by the way.
Yeah, this is really tremendous stuff. All I want to know is, when are we getting Snoop Dogg versus Shaq in AEW? The real dream match. Put it together, guys.
I've got a better one for you. I pitched this to Michael Sidgwick, and he was strangely not that keen on it. I was saying we should have Snoop Dogg versus Pat McAfee, and the loser has to leave Wednesday nights. So there you go. Job done.
Jesus.
Also, I don't want to get political here, Andy, but in terms of celebrities who should probably have backstage heat in WWE, I can think of one other name this week that quite a lot of people have been talking about. Just putting it out there. We're not going to get political on this. But we are going to talk about the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin, 3-time Royal Rumble winner, isn't that much of a fan of the Royal Rumble. What? He had an interview with Fox Sports' Ryan Satin, and said, I won 3 Rumbles, but I didn't really like Royal Rumbles because there's so much going on. Look, long story short here, I'll go into more of what he said, but basically, it's just a bloody nightmare if you're a wrestler in there, which makes a lot of sense, to be fair. The amount of times, we can sit here and go, oh, look at this botchery, or, this person, what's going on with this elimination, etc., etc. But the logistics of it all are mind-blowing. It's all well and good us sitting here and fantasy booking, Edge returning or whatever, but the logistics of who eliminates who and how do we get to the final, you want to not only do you have to pick the winner, you kind of have to try and book it so there's little moments throughout it and who's going to be the final four, etc., etc. I'll tell you what Stone Cold said. He said so many things that can go wrong because that can't go wrong, because everything's got to work out. You know what I'm speaking out without just spelling it out. I'll never forget in San Diego at my first Royal Rumble, I was supposed to be the fourth guy left in the ring, and Rikishi or somebody gave me a clothesline on the ropes, and the ropes, were so badly oiled up from everybody wearing baby oil, I slipped. There were a bunch of guys in the ring, and I went out way too early. He basically says they were going to give him a bit of a push, and he kind of blew it because he slipped off the ropes. We've seen that time and time and time again over the years. And I sense he doesn't... It's not that he dislikes Royal Rumbles, the concept, and I'm sure he really enjoys watching them now because he's like, well, that's not my bloody problem. But yeah, it sounds like it's a nightmare to be a part of, Andy, especially if you're not like the person who's going to win or the person who gets eliminated in 10 seconds, for example.
Yeah, and who would have known that Michael Nakazawa would have interfered in a Royal Rumble match way back in the mid-90s? Crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, fair play. I've never been in a Royal Rumble match, obviously, so I imagine they are an organizational nightmare. But, it's still like my favorite WWE event of the year. So,
yeah.
F the police.
It makes a lot more sense now why, after about 20 minutes, a lot of times people will just be like hugging in the corner with one leg slightly over the top rope going, what the bloody hell do we do now? Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to our Twitter questions. At WhatCultureWWE if you want to get in touch with us. Mark Solid kicks us off saying, morning legends, if you could pick a WWE legend to be a surprise entry in the men's and women's match, who would you pick? I'd pick Christian versus Orton for the men's and Lita for the women's versus Rhea. Or Triple H and Stephanie, because why not? Who are your picks, Andy?
So for the men's match, I'm going Booker T, man. We all saw him in the music video recently. He's in tremendous shape.
Yeah.
He posted a thing to Instagram a few days ago saying, preparing for 2021, tag me in. Throw Booker T in there, man. Why not? He's in great shape. He could probably do a spinneroonie and just pop the Zoom call and do whatever else.
That's a great shout, actually, to be fair. I've already sort of spoiled my best friend Wade Barrett, who's obviously going to come out at number 30, so I'm not going to pick him as my surprise pick. I'm going to pick the same surprise pick I literally pick every year, because why can't we have nice things? Scotty Too Hotty. He's literally... he worked in the performance center. I'm not sure if he still does or not, but he's right there, and he can do the dance. Oh, my head would explode if he came out. And just to add the icing on the cake in terms of the women's side of things, just to really top Phil Chambers' day off. Hoy Molly Holly in the women's, because she's always great, and Phil gets worriedly excited when she appears. So there we go. Second question today comes from Wade Blogs, who says, fellas, I have the perfect angle for a CM Punk return. Omega wins the Impact and the IWGP title and becomes the first ever Triple Crown champion, and says, quote, he's the best in the world. Then at Full Gear, CM Punk returns for the title and belt. What do you reckon, Andy?
I think, it's an easy way to bring CM Punk into the fold. I do think that 2021 will be the year we see... I'm going to say this and I'm going to look like a moron when it doesn't happen, but 2021 has a good chance of being the year we see CM Punk finally return. I think, he sounds more open to it in interviews and stuff. I think this is a good way to do it. I do think he's more likely to go to AEW because of what he said recently about people coming up with a cool story. AEW creative's a little bit more consistent than WWE creative. I don't think that's a controversial statement. Some people will turn it into one regardless. But yes, I think this is cool. I would like to see it. And CM Punk is easily the biggest name free agent on the market. And if you're going to jump anyone straight into a spot like that in your company, it would be him.
I don't usually get my predictions wrong, but I may have suggested that CM Punk was going to return last year, especially at number 30 in the Royal Rumble. But yeah, I'll add a year onto it. And that's going to be some interesting booking.
Yeah, I'm not going to wear this.
How many times have we got to have this conversation?
I know, man. I regret this instantly. My head's already hot.
Right, keep it on this for this final question.
Oh, Jesus,
hey, guys,
all right.
Now The Undertaker is retired, asks Gamer Steve7. Do you think he will take up a backstage role like an agent or writer? He also shared us that tattoo that we've all seen of the classic World Heavyweight title tattooed onto someone's belly.
Yep. I think we'll see The Undertaker in a role at the Performance Center, which was reported and rumored towards the end of the year after he retired. I think it's a good fit for him. He can go down there, be with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, all those guys, and help people with their characters, help people with various aspects of their presentation and stuff. And I think he could help a lot of people.
Also, don't think he's retired. Right, let's move on to today's and finalies. And in a week where we've been talking about wrestling tattoos, some great ones to finish it all off with. Steve Faso. Woo Guy 8286 on Twitter basically says, lads, what do you think of these tattoos? On the left here, he's got CM Punk's fist holding the Weezer W instead of the lightning bolt.
Very nice.
He said it's red and blue for my favourite albums. Good choice. Mrs. I'm Awesome in the middle, and on the right, 8-bit Mario. And you can see a gorgeous man in the background as well of that photo. And also, Work the Left Side shares this. He says, hi guys, I see that Fiend Alexa tattoo and raise you a stone cold one. The start of a wrestling wraparound piece, Jericho, Eddie, and Savage to be added. Love both of those.
Yeah, tremendous stuff. I don't have the balls to get a tattoo, so I admire all of you who do.
Yes, I've literally only got one, and it's just all it is. Nice, simple, full back Titus O'Neil face. Okay. Right, there we have it. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. We're going to be previewing SmackDown a little bit later on, and of course the return of Wrest Culture with a bloody good quiz a little bit later on. You also can let us know your thoughts, Twitter questions on Twitter at What Culture WWE. While you're there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Happy Birthday Bushwhacker Luke. Going to be doing this all day around the house, licking heads, going out of the Royal Rumble in 7 seconds. Yep. What a load of crap.
Happy birthday. You follow me on Twitter at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.